Join me as I read the Bible for the first time. I'm reading Genesis 45 today. Nothing rehearsed, honest reactions. And previously, we had Judah take the place of Benjamin. Or actually, he didn't want to take the place, but he was talking with his brother Joseph about taking Benjamin's place because Joseph set up a silver cup basically as a test, I think, to probably keep Benjamin. But Judah, his other brother, came back and said, pleaded with him and said, I want to stay in as a slave instead of our youngest brother. So let's get into Genesis 45. And, I'm at the ocean today and hopefully the waves are not distracting. It's a beautiful day. I figured I'd come out here. All right. Genesis 45. Joseph reveals his identity. It's about time. Again, I have never read any of this. I'm just reading from the beginning to the end. So it's, we'll figure things out here. Quite a story, actually. There's a lot with Joseph. Joseph reveals his identity. Joseph could stand it no longer. It's about time, man. Like, you've been playing some games here, and I know Joseph is really conflicted emotionally to figure out, because he's also showing that he has the power and being a ruler, essentially, right underneath the Pharaoh of Egypt. He is probably trying to prove to his younger brothers, as well as to his father, because he hasn't met his father yet, Jacob, and many, since basically they gave him away. But I think Joseph is really struggling with a lot emotionally. Okay, so Joseph could stand it no longer. There were many people in the room, and he said to his attendants, "Out, all of you." So he was alone with his brothers when he told them who he was. Then he broke down and wept. He wept so loudly the Egyptians could hear him, and word of it quickly carried to Pharaoh's palace. Uh-oh. It's usually not a good thing when the Egyptians, because the Egyptians don't like him anyway, but they did accept him. This is a question here, because I wonder what the Pharaoh is actually thinking. That's a good thought. Okay. "I am Joseph," he said to his brothers. "Is my father still alive?" He said he is Joseph. He laid it out to his brothers. But his brothers were speechless, as they would be. They were stunned to realize that Joseph was standing there in front of them. "Please come closer," he said to them. So they came closer. And he said again, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into slavery in Egypt. But don't be upset and don't be angry with yourselves for selling me to this place. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve our lives. This famine that has ravaged the land for 2 years will last 5 more years, and there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. God has sent me ahead of you to keep you and your families alive, to preserve many survivors. So it was God who sent me here, not you. And he is the one who made me an advisor to Pharaoh, the manager of this entire palace and the governor of all Egypt." Whew, so Joseph is turning this whole thing around because by God, he is saying that God sent him there and sold him into slavery, and everything that has happened to him is because of God. Knowing full well, essentially, that God would have a plan, that there was going to be a famine, and sent Joseph ahead to make sure that people stayed alive. Perhaps to make sure that his brothers and everybody stayed wealthy and stayed alive as well. Interesting. Okay. "Now hurry back to my father and tell him, this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me master over all the land of Egypt. So come down to me immediately. You can live in the region of Goshen, where you can be near me with all your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and everything you own. I will take care of you there, for there are still 5 years of famine ahead of us. Otherwise, you, your household, and all your animals will starve." Joseph is quite forgiving. He's quite forgiving. Now he's offering him a place to stay. Still wonder what the Pharaoh is going to say. But then Joseph added, "Look, you can see for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that I really am Joseph. Go tell my father of my honored position here in Egypt. Describe for him everything you have seen, and then bring my father here quickly." Weeping with joy, he embraced Benjamin, and Benjamin did the same. Then Joseph kissed each of his brothers and wept over them. And after that, they began talking freely with him. The interesting thing about Benjamin is he's the younger brother. So Benjamin didn't have any say in what was happening to Joseph. I got one seagull that's hanging out right here. I don't know if he's ever gonna, he's just been sitting in front of me. Just one listening. Perhaps that's what it's supposed to be. It's just chilling. Pharaoh invites Jacob to Egypt. The news soon reached Pharaoh's palace. Joseph's brothers have arrived. Pharaoh and his officials were all delighted to hear this. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers, this is what you must do. Load your pack animals and hurry back to the land of Canaan. Then get your father and all of your families and return here to me. I will give you the very best land in Egypt, and you will eat from the very best that the land produces." Oh, the Pharaoh is accepting. I like this. That's good. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers, take the wagons from the land of Egypt to carry your little children and your wives, and bring your father here. Don't worry about your personal belongings, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours." Pharaoh is really good. So the sons of Jacob did as they were told. Joseph provided them with wagons, as Pharaoh had commanded, and he gave them supplies for the journey, and he gave each of them new clothes. But to Benjamin he gave 5 changes of clothes and 300 pieces of silver. He also sent his father 10 male donkeys loaded with the finest products of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain and bread and other supplies he would need on his journey. So Joseph sent his brothers off, and as they left, he called after them, "Don't quarrel about all this along the way." And they left Egypt and returned to their father, Jacob, in the land of Canaan. It's a pretty good statement there. Don't quarrel about all this along the way. It's a pretty good statement to say because they know that there's going to be issues. They've all got different wealth coming, and it's like, don't argue about it. Just get it done. Just get it done. That's what it seems like he's saying. Like, don't worry about it. Don't quarrel. Don't think about it. Don't try and take from each other. Don't do anything. Joseph is still alive, they told him. Told who? Did they already get back? Joseph is still alive, they told him, and he is governor of all the land of Egypt. Jacob was stunned at the news. He couldn't believe it. But when they repeated to Jacob everything Joseph had told them, and when he saw the wagons Joseph sent to carry him, their father's spirits revived. Then Jacob exclaimed, "It must be true. My son Joseph is alive. I must go and see him before I die." I wonder what Jacob as a father is really thinking. I mean, what would you be thinking then? You sent your son, he thought his son died, and now he's learning that he's alive and somebody great. I don't understand how that could be because I've never lost a son, so that's a hard one to think.